I got a text this morning saying, "Why am I being criticized in 2022? I retired in 1982." And I wrote back, "Well, you should be flattered. They're still talking about you 40 years later." Let's go out to the Nemacolin fan hotline and welcome in Jack Ham. Jack, I'll bet you never thought you'd be a guest with us today, did you?
No, I have to admit, Ron, it did not cross my mind, and I listened to your show a lot, and happened to catch it the last couple of days, and I got to admit, it was a lot of fun for me to hear all that stuff.
What did you think when Doug Whaley goes, well, he'd be a backup special teams player today?
Well, first of all, I got to correct one thing. It's 6'2.5", and I played around 228. All right, that was my playing weight, and I always talk to you, Ron, about the fact of it's such a different game here today. But the one thing that I did have that I think it transcends any era, I had quickness out there, and I actually studied the game quite a bit, and I had a great mentor in Andy Russell. So, I would have been more involved in the weight training. I'd more involved in nutrition, which I'm involved in that now. And, I'd had probably another extra year in college. So I would have adapted. I would have adapted to the game today. I could have been like a lot of teams are using right now, that weak side linebacker is half safety, half linebacker, which would probably been a perfect position for me because I love the passing game. So I would tell Doug that I don't think he's correct. Plus, I was the worst special teams guy in the world, so that's why you try to start for Chuck Noll, so you're off special teams.
Jack, you got to get people to fix the height and weight then. All these sites have you at 6'1", 220, 6'1", 225. You're 6'2 and a half?
Yep. I have not shrunk, and so I'm 6'2 and a half. And for back then, Joe, for playing under the 4-3 defense, you didn't want your linebackers to be any bigger than that because you're so involved in the passing game. And I loved the passing game. So you had to be athletic on the outside in man-to-man coverage on tight ends or man-to-man coverage on backside of the backfield. And so in that 220, I could have actually played a little bit lighter on the outside on the 4-3 defense.
Jack, I think we all agree that athletes are bigger, stronger, and faster today, right? The evolution of the game is incredible. Did you see that defensive lineman that the Steelers were interested from Georgia? What was he, about like 6'8", 360, and runs like a 4.7 or something?
Yeah. I saw that, Ron, and it reminds me of back when both at Penn State and the Steelers, we got timed in 10 yards, and that guy, whoever the guy's name, I forget the guy from Georgia, but his time in 10 yards was awfully good as well. And that's more of a barometer for a defensive lineman or a linebacker. If I'm running 40 yards on a play, I'm chasing somebody. And so how quick you are in that 10-yard area, and that young man, I think, is going to have a hell of a career in the NFL. But that's a better benchmark for a defensive player, especially defensive lineman or a linebacker. Now, safeties, wide receivers, and those guys, they got to have the top end speed. But the quickness in 10 yards is so critical, and I had that on my side as well when I was playing.
Not only did you have that on your side, Chuck Noll was quoted as saying you were the quickest Steeler, including the backs and receivers, in a 10-yard stretch. Was that true?
That is true, and I equate a lot of that to. I played a lot of racquetball in college and also in the pros, and that's. In that racquetball court, it's 20 by 40. You are taking 3, 4, 5 steps all the time, as quick as you possibly can. Especially if you play players better than you, and who handle the racket. Like I had a lot of great matches with Al Oliver when he was here in Pittsburgh, and we were both racquetball enthusiasts back then. But that quickness, I had that in college. I got time like that in college at Penn State, and I was very, very quick there, and it carried over in Pittsburgh.
And the other thing that I tried to point out in making your case, Jack, was that not all the guys you played against were tiny. Earl Campbell's bigger than most of the running. He's bigger than Najee Harris. Dave Casper, Russ Francis are as big or bigger than George Kittle, who's the best tight end in the game today. It's not like you were playing against all these tiny people.
Oh no, not at all. And Earl Campbell might have been the best running back, the most physical running back that I know on our team during that era, and he could have played in any era as well. But Joe, it goes back to technique. I mean, when you get from college to the pros, you have to work at your craft. This is your job now, and if you out technique somebody for 4 quarters, you're going to make more plays out there, and you're going to be more a consistent player out there as well. And one of the great tight ends I played against, Russ Francis, and that was a hell of a challenge. He was 245, 250 back then, and leverage all the things you got to do, anticipate plays, read plays, understand what people are trying to do against you. All those things add up as well. So I played against some great tight ends throughout my career, and Casper and Russ Francis are probably the top 2.
We're talking to Hall of Famer Jack Ham here on the Cook and Joe Show. Jack, how about some of your teammates? Could Mike Webster have adapted at center? He was smaller on the smaller side compared to these guys now, to Joe Green. And how about the guy next to you, Jack Lambert?
Well, again, this game today is such a big part of it. Such a passing game today. In my era, it was you ran the ball twice and threw the ball on third down. Well, now you're throwing the ball all over the lot all the time. And like I said, I would have loved playing more. I enjoyed the passing game. I intercepted a lot of balls from the linebacking position, and so I would probably loved it today. But there's no question, Joe Green, he was 280 pounds when he came in, and he was just so quick off the ball that he was. There's no question. Mel Blount, I think, would be another guy, probably the top guy, I think, who could probably turn from one era to the other. And again, it was Jack Lambert. A middle linebacker who plays the passing game very well, which is more than half the game today. So you would have to be a good in the pass game, or you'd be a liability out there, or you'd be on the bench and then bring a defensive back in.
Last time I saw Mel Blount, he's like 70. Looks like he still could go out and play. I've never seen anyone like it, Jack. Have you? A physical specimen like him?
That was the most natural athlete that I had ever seen come in pro football. He was there a couple of years before I got there. And I always remember back when Chuck Noll, you talk about a guy who's going to play the best player no matter what. Chuck Noll was involved in that lawsuit out with the Oakland Raiders, and ended up had to say some things about our secondary, one being Mel Blount, and I think Glenn Edwards as well. And they were talking about the criminal element in pro football. And Mel Blount sued Chuck Noll for libel for that. And next training camp in Latrobe, first team defense out there at right corner is Mel Blount. And he was just a player that didn't matter what anything else he did, in suing the head coach. He knew that he was the best player by far and had him out there at right corner. And I'll never forget all that.
All right, Jack, before we let you go, I think you were before your time. You probably could make more money at Penn State now than you did in your entire pro football career. What do you think of this name, image, likeness, and these kids, being recruited or getting millions of dollars?
Well, this is all the NCAA's fault, because they let politicians make decisions on their industry, and when they do that, it ends up being like the chaos that we have right now, and it's a free-for-all. And what was under the table illegal back when is now above board and legal, and I'm not sure this is a good thing. Now, can Saquon Barkley make money off his shirt and so forth? Fine. I have no problem with all of that. But now they're getting into the point where this has gotten out of control. Somebody's got to rein it in, and I'm not sure the NCAA can do it.
I don't know who's going to rein it in, Jack, but how about these coaches bickering? They don't like the players making money. It's okay for them to make the big money. You heard about Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher. I mean, it was priceless stuff.
Oh, it made your probably 2 days of your show with the stuff like that, with those two guys going at each other. But somehow I think Texas A&M has five-star defensive linemen in that recruiting class, and that has got to be a recruiting record for five-star defensive linemen coming in this year to Texas A&M.
Jack, we appreciate the time. We appreciate you got a great sense of humor, man. Starkey was all over this saying you'd still be a great player today. And, I think we all agree. You'd have done what you had to do. You'd have put on some weight, right? You'd have ate better.
You would adapt. You would adapt. So anyways, Joe, thank you for all the support. And also the article. I pulled it up this morning.
Sorry I got the height wrong. I had no idea. But thank you, Jack.
All right. Okay.
Hey, Jack, stay well. We'll talk again real soon, okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
This is great, Ron. Now I've written stories on Lambert and Ham and gotten their measurables wrong in both.
And, boy, he pointed that out, too, didn't he?
It says on Pro Football Reference 6'1", 225. I mean, now it's even more of a 6'2 and a half, 228. He would have guys are playing at less than that.
He's
with that kind of quickness, and he verified it. Noel said he was faster than the receivers.
10 yards is
in
what.
10 yards.
He said, if I'm running 40 yards, I'm running somebody down the field. I shouldn't be doing that. How about that? Was fun, wasn't it?
That was great. What a great week. What a great ending to the week. Folsey's healthy and well.
Joe, I got to say,
yes.
Again, I've said this. Everybody says Joe Green, the best Steeler of all time. I'll live with that. He and Mel Blount, Jack Ham and Mel Blount, were right there for me. Right, and you heard what he said about Mel.
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
I mean, Mel Blount could walk from that field onto this field and play at 6'3", 205, and legend has it he ran a 4.40. So that stuff can be way, way overblown.
When Ham said he's the best athlete I've ever seen come into Pittsburgh, that's pretty good mouthful from him.
By and large, players bigger, stronger, faster, but it just simply doesn't apply to a lot of people. And Joe Green is obviously one of them. He's 5 pounds lighter in his playing days than Aaron Donald.
Right.
And he was among the quickest defensive tackles in the history of the game. You could pluck him out of 72, out of a game, Matty, put him onto the field next year for Steelers-Ravens, and he's destroying people. Why wouldn't he? He's 5 pounds lighter than Aaron Donald. Actually, he's the same, if Ham is right.
Notice he called you Matty this time, as opposed to Folsey. He's all over the place.
I told you he would be.
Posey, you're a hell of a man.
What was that? Posey?
Posey? Buster Posey? Thank you, Folsey.
Hey, thank you, man. It was a great week, even if you're only here for 3.5 of the days.
Thanks, Ron.
Try to make it in for all 5 next week.
Joe, that was fun. That was
guarantees.
a great week. I hope you have a great weekend.